My name is Casey Horner, and I'm 31 years old. The day I got the keys to my house, I stood in the empty living room and whispered, "This is mine," like I was afraid the walls might disagree. For most people, buying a home is a milestone. For me, it was proof that I'd survived my childhood. Survived being the kid who learned early not to ask for too much. So I decided to celebrate properly. Housewarming party, food, music, laughter. A night where my home didn't feel like drywall and silence, but like a beginning. My boyfriend, Ethan, was the one who insisted we hang string lights out back. He stood on a chair like an idiot, tongue between his teeth in concentration, and said, "You deserve a moment that isn't about anyone else's drama." I laughed, because in my family, drama wasn't an accident. It was tradition. That's why, when I invited my mom, I was very specific. "Mom," I said on the phone, careful and calm, "I'm inviting you, just you. Please don't bring Adam or Emma." There was a pause, the kind that carries 1,000 arguments inside it. Then she sighed, like I was the unreasonable one. "Casey, you're still doing this?" "Yes," I said, "I am." She gave me a soft, fake laugh that felt like someone running their nail down glass. Fine. I believed her. That was my mistake. The party started beautifully. My friends filled the kitchen, complimenting the open shelves I'd installed myself, the little entryway bench Ethan had surprised me with, the way the late sunlight poured across the hardwood like it was blessing me. Someone handed me a drink. Someone else hugged me and said, "You did it." For a couple hours, I felt light. Then my doorbell rang. I turned, smile ready, until I saw my mom on the porch. And beside her, Adam. And behind them, Emma. Emma was 21, the kind of pretty that weaponized itself. Perfect hair, perfect makeup, perfect little smirk, like she'd already decided she was the star of a show I didn't remember auditioning for. Ethan's hand found the small of my back, a quiet anchor. My mom beamed, like she'd brought a gift. "Surprise!" I stepped outside, keeping my voice low. "Mom, I told you." I know," she cut in, waving her hand like she could erase my boundary midair. "But I thought this could be good, an opportunity." "For what?" I asked, jaw tight. "For you to prove you don't listen to me?" Adam leaned against my doorframe like he owned it. "Nice place," he said, but his eyes didn't match his words. They scanned the house like he was evaluating resale value. Emma's gaze slid over me, slow and judgmental. "It's cozy," she said, dragging the word out like it tasted bad. My mom's smile sharpened. "Can we not do this here? People are watching." Of course. My mother didn't mind disrespecting me. She just hated doing it where it made her look bad. So I swallowed it. I stepped back and let them in. At first, I tried to ignore them. I really did. I floated from group to group, refilling snacks, laughing at jokes, showing friends the backyard like I could distract myself from the fact that my mother had brought a ticking bomb into my living room and expected me to call it family. Emma wandered like she was on a tour. Then, near the kitchen island, she raised her voice just enough for people to hear. "I mean, it's cute," she said to one of my friends, loud and sweet, "but with my salary, I could afford something way better." There was a tiny hush. That social pause people do when someone's being rude and they're waiting to see if the host will pretend it didn't happen. Heat crawled up my neck. Because here's the thing, Emma didn't even make what I made. Not even close. She just said things like that because she liked watching people shrink. Ethan's eyes flicked to me. "You want me to step in?" his look asked. I didn't let him. I walked right up to Emma and smiled, slow, polite, deadly. "Then you should," I said. "You should buy your own house." Emma blinked. "Excuse me?" I kept smiling. I'm sure Adam and my mom would love to see their 21-year-old daughter finally move out of their basement. A beat. Then laughter. Sharp, surprised, unrestrained. Someone actually snorted. Emma's face went scarlet, the color of humiliation when it's earned. Her mouth opened, searching for a comeback, but nothing came out. She turned away like she was too good to acknowledge me, but her eyes were wet with rage. I didn't follow, I didn't gloat, because my housewarming party wasn't supposed to be a battlefield. But if someone lights a match in your living room, you don't apologize for grabbing the extinguisher. When the night finally ended and the last guest left, the house fell into a ringing silence. Ethan started collecting cups. "You okay?" he asked softly. "I will be," I said, but my throat felt tight. Adam and Emma were already gone. Of course they were. People like them love to cause damage, but they don't stay to sweep the glass. My mom lingered, standing near the entryway as if she was waiting for a medal. "Casey," she said, sighing like a martyr, "you didn't have to embarrass her." I stared at her. She insulted me in my own home. She was joking, my mom said quickly, the way she always defended the wrong person. No, I said, she wasn't. My mom's eyes flashed. You're 31 years old and still acting like a teenager. That one hit, because it was the same script she'd used my whole life. You're too sensitive. You're too dramatic. You're the problem. I took a breath. Let's be clear. I'm not trying to bond with Adam and Emma. I'm not interested. I'm allowed to choose who's in my life. My mom's lips pressed into a thin line. Then she said, too casually, like it was a normal favor. Well, Emma needs a place. I didn't move. What? Her new job, my mom said. It's closer to here than our place. It would make sense for her to stay with you for a while. Ethan froze near the sink. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd my brain didn't know what else to do. No, I said, absolutely not. My mom's voice sharpened. Casey, you're being selfish. This is my house, I said, calm as ice. My peace, my rules. She's family, my mom insisted, as if saying it louder made it truer. She's your husband's daughter, I corrected, not mine. My mom's face twisted like she'd been slapped. If you two spent real time together, you'd see she's not the monster you make her out to be. I stepped closer. Mom, I'm not doing this. Not now. Not ever. Something ugly flashed in her eyes. Anger, hurt, pride. Then she grabbed her coat. Fine, she snapped. Don't come crying to me later. And she stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the picture frame Ethan had just hung. That night, I lay awake listening to the house settle, the gentle pops of new wood, the distant hum of the refrigerator. I told myself the worst of it was over. I was wrong. The next day, during work, my phone buzzed with an alert from my security company. Break-in detected. My stomach dropped so fast it felt like falling. I left immediately, hands shaking on the steering wheel as I drove home, rehearsing every terrifying possibility. When I pulled up, everything looked normal. No broken windows, no smashed door. But when I put my key in the lock, it didn't fit. My breath hitched. I tried again. Nothing. That's when I heard voices inside, casual, comfortable, like they belonged there. I stepped back, heart hammering, and reached for my phone. I was about to dial the police when the door swung open. And there stood Adam, smiling, like he'd been waiting. Well, he said, folding his arms, look who's home. Behind him, I saw Emma's suitcase by the stairs. My skin went cold. What did you do? I whispered. Adam's smile widened. This is your punishment. For what? I snapped, voice cracking. For owning my own house? For saying no? He tilted his head, mock thoughtful. For disrespecting Emma. For thinking you can treat her like that. I stared at him, stunned. Get out of my house. He chuckled. You're not coming in. Then his eyes sharpened, and he lowered his voice like he was sharing a secret. You won't call the police, he said, because you don't want to upset your mother, and we both know her history. The way he said it, so confident, so smug, made something inside me go still. Because in that moment, I realized they weren't just stealing my house. They were betting they could steal my mother from me, too. I lifted my phone. Adam's smile faltered, just slightly. You wouldn't, he said. I looked him dead in the eye, and I hit call. The police got there in under an hour. It felt longer. It felt like my whole life was stretched out on that front porch, my bare feet on the cold wood, my phone clenched so tight my knuckles went white, my heart thudding like it was trying to escape first. Adam stayed inside most of the time after I called, like he suddenly remembered that being bold is only fun when there aren't consequences. But Emma? Emma walked past the window twice, slowly, on purpose. She looked out at me like I was the one who didn't belong, like I was a guest who'd overstayed. When the patrol car finally pulled up, I almost sagged with relief. A uniformed officer stepped out and asked, calm and professional, Ma'am, you're the homeowner? Yes, I said, voice shaking. My name is Casey Horner. This is my property. They changed the locks. The officer nodded, glanced at the door, and knocked. Adam opened it like he'd been rehearsing a speech in the mirror. Officers, he said, palms up, friendly. There's been a misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding, I cut in. I hated how small my voice sounded, hated how my throat burned like I was crying even when I wasn't. That's my house. I did not give permission for anyone to enter, change locks, or move in. One officer turned to Adam. Sir, do you have documentation proving you live here? Lease, ownership, written permission? Adam's eyes darted. He tried to pivot into charm. Her mother is my wife. We're family. We're just trying to... That's not an answer, the officer said, firmer now. And that was the moment Adam realized he wasn't the center of the story anymore. Emma appeared behind him, arms crossed, wearing my hallway like it was her runway. She's overreacting, Emma said, flipping her hair. She told us we weren't welcome at her party. She's been cruel. The officer's gaze slid to her, unimpressed. Do you live here? Emma didn't even hesitate. I'm moving in. The officer stared at her for a long second, like he was trying to decide if she was serious or if this was some kind of prank. Then he said flat and blunt, not today. I watched Adam's face change as they stepped inside. The police weren't aggressive, but they were undeniably in control. They asked questions. They checked the locks. They made Adam stand aside while one of them walked the interior with me, confirming I knew the rooms, the layout, the security system. Things only a homeowner would know. Emma's suitcase was already halfway unpacked on my stairs. I saw my own throw blanket draped over the couch like it belonged to her now. And something inside me snapped, not into rage, but into clarity. If I didn't stop this right now, I would spend the rest of my life defending my boundaries from people who thought family meant free access. When the officer told Adam and Emma they needed to leave immediately, Adam sputtered, "You can't just—" "Yes, we can," the officer said. "You're trespassing." Emma made this little noise, half scoff, half whine, like she'd just been told the world didn't revolve around her. As they walked out, Adam shot me a look full of poison. Not fear, not shame, pure hatred. Because I'd proven I couldn't be bullied. He hissed under his breath, "You're going to regret this." Emma didn't say a word. She just smiled. Small, quiet, satisfied. Like she'd gotten what she came for. When they were gone, I sat on my living room floor with my back against the wall. The house was mine again. But it didn't feel safe. It felt violated. The officer asked if I wanted to change the locks back immediately, recommended a locksmith, gave me a case number. I thanked him. I nodded. I did everything like a robot. Because my brain was already ahead of me, already picturing the fallout. My mom, her history. The thing I wasn't allowed to say out loud growing up, but always felt like a shadow in our house. My mother's fear of police wasn't a preference. It was a wound. Still, what else could I have done? A few hours later, my phone rang. "Mom!" My stomach clenched so hard I thought I might be sick. I answered, voice soft. "Hey." There was a pause on the line, the kind that meant she'd been crying. When she spoke, her voice wasn't angry. It was worse. It was broken. "Casey," she whispered, Did you really call the police on my husband?" The words hit like a slap. Not, did he do it? Not, are you okay? Not, are you safe? Just, did you embarrass me? Did you trigger my trauma? Did you ruin my new family? "Yes," I said, swallowing. "Because he broke into my house. He changed the locks, Mom. He told me I couldn't come inside." Silence. Then her voice trembled. "You should have called me first." I blinked hard. "What?" "You should have talked to me," she repeated, like she was reading from a script she'd written to survive the reality. "I could have handled it. I could have fixed it without that." "Without police," I said quietly. Her breath hitched, and I suddenly understood. To her, the word police didn't mean protection. It meant power. It meant humiliation. It meant helplessness. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I was locked out of my own home. I had no choice." "You always have a choice," she snapped, then immediately softened again, like she hated the sharpness but couldn't stop it. "Adam said you humiliated Emma. He said you've been cruel to them. He said he was only trying to teach you." "Teach me?" I whispered, stunned. "Mom, listen to yourself." She sounded like she was holding back sobs. "I can't forgive you, Casey." My chest tightened. "For protecting myself?" "For involving them," she said, voice cracking. "For making me relive things. For doing the one thing you know I can't handle." That's when the guilt started sliding under my ribs like a knife. Because she wasn't faking it. My mother could be dramatic. She could perform tears like an actress. But this wasn't performance. This was real pain. And it broke my heart. I sat there gripping the phone, staring at the wall where my family photos hung. Me as a kid, my mom holding me, both of us smiling like the future was going to be kind. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I didn't want to hurt you." Her voice went flat, exhausted. "It's too late." Then she said the words I never thought I'd hear from my own mother. "I can't talk to you anymore." I heard a beep. She'd hung up. Then my phone screen flashed. Number blocked. I stared at it for a long time. Blocked. Like I was a stranger. Like I was a problem she could solve by deleting. That night I barely slept. I kept replaying everything. Adam's smug face. Emma's suitcase on my stairs. My mom's trembling voice. And the worst part was this. I couldn't find the moment where I'd made a different choice without losing something anyway. If I didn't call the police, I would have lost my home. If I did, I lost my mother. I thought about her history, the reason the word police made her voice change. For most of my life, I didn't know the details. She never told me everything, only fragments, like broken glass she didn't want to touch with bare hands. But I knew enough. 15 years ago, after my parents split, she dated a man who was a police officer. At first, she'd tried to spin it like a fresh start. He's stable, she told me. He's got a good job. But stability can be a mask, and power can be a weapon. It lasted 2 years. 2 years where my mom slowly disappeared. She stopped seeing friends. She stopped smiling. She started flinching at her own phone vibrating. There were months where I barely saw her. When I did, she looked like someone had turned the brightness down inside her. Then one night he left. Not with a conversation. Not with closure. He ran off with a coworker and left my mom a letter like she was trash he didn't want to carry anymore. After that, my mom didn't just hate police. She feared them. She couldn't even report a stolen purse once. She refused. Shaking, pale, insisting, "No, no, I can't." So yes, calling the police on Adam was the worst thing I could have done in her eyes. But here was the part that kept me awake. Adam and Emma knew. They knew her history. They knew what the word police would do to her. And they still did it. They still changed my locks. They still forced the situation. Almost like they wanted me to be the villain. I thought back to the moment the officers arrived. Adam looked shocked, genuinely shocked, like he expected my fear of losing my mom to keep me obedient. But Emma? Emma had been calm. Too calm. She wasn't startled. She wasn't scared. She looked pleased. As if this outcome, me calling the police, was part of her plan. Because if my mom turned on me, Emma wouldn't have to compete for attention anymore. She would win by default. 2 weeks passed. No calls. No texts. No. "How are you?" Just silence so thick it felt like punishment. Then one night, my friend Jenna came over with takeout. She hesitated, then said, "I probably shouldn't show you this, but I feel like you should know." She held out her phone. A photo on Emma's social media. Emma, my mom, and Adam at the beach. Sunglasses on, arms around each other, smiling like they'd just survived a tragedy together. The caption said something like, "Just the fam, recovering." Recovering. From what? From trespassing in my home? From being told no for the first time in her life? I felt something twist in my stomach so hard I thought I might actually throw up. Because my mom always said she hated the beach. Always. Whenever I suggested it growing up, she'd wave me off. Too much sun, too much sand. Let's go to the mountains. So I did. I gave up. I learned not to ask. And now she was at the beach for Emma. That realization hurt in a way I wasn't prepared for. It wasn't just about the locks or the police. It was about the mother I never got, being handed to someone else like a gift. I called my dad the next day. He listened quietly, then said, "Casey, you did the right thing." "What if I didn't?" I whispered. "What if I just waited? Called Mom first?" My dad exhaled. "Your mom asked me about housing for Emma before your party." I froze. "Before?" "Yeah," he said. "She wanted to find something cheap close to Emma's job. I told her I can help with buying, not renting. And she sounded like she was considering buying." My skin went cold. So the move-in idea wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't some last-minute emergency. It was a plan. And when Casey, the daughter, said no, they retaliated. Not because Emma needed a place, but because they couldn't stand being denied. I stared out my window at my driveway, at my front steps, at the door that still didn't feel like it belonged to me again. And I realized something else, too. When it was time for me to go to college, my mom said, "Figure it out. You need to learn independence. No help, no safety net." But Emma got beach trips, housing plans, emotional protection, and my mom's loyalty, even when Emma's own father broke into my house. That was the truth I'd been circling for years. My mom didn't just change. She chose who she wanted to change for. And it wasn't me. That night, I sat on my bed with my phone in my hand. My dad said, "Give it a couple days." But I didn't want to. Because courage is a fragile thing. Sometimes you either use it immediately or you lose it. My thumb hovered over my mom's number. She'd blocked me on social media, but not my phone. Not yet. My stomach rolled, my palms sweaty, my heart pounding in my ears. And the thought that terrified me most wasn't that she'd yell. It was that she wouldn't answer at all. Because if she didn't, then it meant Emma and Adam hadn't just stolen my peace. They'd stolen my mother completely. And I didn't know who I was without at least trying to get her back. I took a shaking breath, and I pressed call. The phone rang once, twice. By the third ring, my heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. Then, "Hello?" My mom's voice was cautious. guarded, like she'd already built a wall and was peeking over it to see if I was dangerous. "Hi, Mom," I said. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. "It's me." Silence. I imagined her standing in her kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, Adam somewhere nearby, pretending not to listen. "I wasn't sure you'd answer," I added. "I almost didn't," she said honestly. That hurt more than if she'd yelled. I swallowed. "I don't want us to end like this." Another pause. Finally, she sighed. "Maybe we should talk in person." Relief washed through me so fast I had to sit down. We agreed to meet for lunch the next day. Neutral territory, a small cafe halfway between our houses. When I hung up, my hands were shaking. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept replaying every version of the conversation. Me begging, her apologizing, us crying and hugging like in the movies. And then the darker versions, her blaming me, defending Adam, walking out. When I arrived at the cafe, she was already there. She stood when she saw me, and for a brief second, she looked like my mom again. We hugged, awkward, careful, like two people afraid of breaking something fragile. She smelled the same. That almost undid me. We sat, ordered, made small talk about work, the weather, anything that wasn't the reason we were there. Then I took a breath and said, "I need to say something, and I need you to just listen." She nodded. "I feel like you're being the mother to Emma that you were never willing to be to me." The words hung there, heavy. Her eyes filled instantly. I pressed on before I lost my nerve. "When I was younger, you told me to figure things out on my own. College, money, life. You said it was for my independence, but now, you bend over backwards for her. You protect her. You choose her comfort over my safety." Her lips trembled. She looked down at her hands. "I needed you back then," I said softly. "And you weren't there. And watching you do it now, for someone else, hurts more than I know how to explain." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I know," she whispered. "I know." That was not the response I expected. She took a shaky breath. "I wasn't ready to be a mom when I had you, Casey." My chest tightened. My parents pushed me into marriage, into motherhood. I was so young, and I felt trapped before I even understood what was happening. She wiped her eyes. "When your dad and I divorced, I finally felt free, and I chased that freedom too hard." I stared at her, stunned. "I checked out," she said, voice barely audible. "Long before the divorce was final. I told myself you were old enough, strong enough, that you didn't need me the way a little kid would." She looked up at me then, eyes red. That was wrong. For a moment, hope flared. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was the turning point. "I'm sorry," she said. "I really am. I wasn't the mother you deserved." My throat burned. "Then why does it feel like you're choosing them over me again?" Her shoulders sagged. "Because I'm trying to fix my past," she admitted. "And I can't fix it with you." That sentence shattered something inside me. She went on, voice trembling. "With Emma, there's no history, no guilt, no reminders of who I failed to be. I can start fresh." So that was it. Emma wasn't special. She was convenient. I stared down at my untouched food. "So what happens now?" My mom hesitated. "I think we should take some space." There it was. Space. The word people use when they don't want to say goodbye out loud. "I think not talking for a while might be best," she added quickly. "We're both dealing with a lot." I looked at her and finally saw the truth clearly. This wasn't about healing. It was about choosing the path of least resistance. Adam and Emma didn't challenge her. They didn't hold up a mirror. They didn't ask her to confront who she'd been. I did, and that made me expendable. "I love you," I said quietly. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I love you too." But love, I realized, isn't always enough. We paid separately. We hugged again, shorter this time. When I walked out of the cafe, the sunlight felt too bright, too ordinary for how heavy my chest felt. I sat in my car for a long time before turning the key. I didn't go back to work. I went home. I poured myself a glass of wine, curled up on my bed, and stared at the ceiling. Because in a strange, quiet way, it felt like a breakup. Not the kind where someone cheats or falls out of love, but the kind where you finally accept that the other person was never going to choose you, and that maybe that has to be enough to let go. This whole mess taught me something I wish I'd learned sooner. You can protect yourself and still be painted as the villain. You can do everything right and still lose people you love. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't fighting harder. It's walking away with your dignity intact. I didn't lose my house, but I lost the illusion that my mother would ever be the parent I needed her to be. And as painful as that truth is, it's also freeing. Because now, the life I build inside these